In this video, we are going to talk about creating relationships in Microsoft Access. So last time we created some tables. This week we will create the relationships between those tables, and then we'll also add some data to the tables as well. So to start off, we are going to talk just a little bit about what table relationships are. So there's a relationship between two tables when they share a common piece of information. So for example, two of the tables that we created last week were patient and prescription. And for each prescription, we want to know what patient that prescription was actually for. So we're going to store the patient ID in the prescription table as well. And as you can see, we already had a patient ID in the patient table as well. So we have a common piece of information here between these two tables, which is patient ID. So the idea being, let's imagine patient ID number 5 gets prescribed some particular medicine. We want that patient number 5 to actually go in with the prescription so that we know exactly who that prescription was for. Okay. There's a few different types of relationship then that we can create in Access. Now, thankfully, Access takes care of a lot of the hard work for you in terms of trying to figure out which type of relationship it is. But just to explain them briefly, we can have a one-to-many relationship, and again, patient and prescription is an example of this. So, for example, a patient can have a number of different prescriptions, but a prescription can only belong to one patient. We can also then have a one-to-one relationship. You and your WIC card are a good example of that. So a student can only have one WIC card, and a WIC card only belongs to one student. We'll have the same idea here on patient card and patient. And lastly, many-to-many relationships. These are a little bit more complex. An example might be where a doctor can see many patients, but a patient might also see many doctors. So imagine this is a practice where there's a few different doctors working, so every time you go, you might actually see a different doctor. So for that, we need some table that's kind of capturing when an individual patient sees an individual doctor. And our appointment table is a good one to do that. So a single appointment will basically store every time, like I said, an individual patient meets an individual doctor, and also, other stuff about the appointment, like the date and so on. Okay. So this will be represented something like this in Access. So we're showing here that patient ID is linked to patient ID in the appointment table, and doctor ID in the appointment table is linked to doctor ID in the doctor table. So we're kind of, these two, patient and doctor, will be connected, but through appointment. Okay, like I said, actually creating these relationships is very easy in Access. So it will just literally be a drag and drop kind of a thing to create it. So I'll show you that in a minute. But just to talk briefly about when you do create a relationship, there's these 3 options that I'm just going to explain. I'm just going to recommend that you tick all 3 of those boxes. But if you're wondering what referential integrity and all these words mean, essentially, referential integrity means that you can't, for example, create a prescription for a patient that doesn't exist. Okay, so that makes sense. You can imagine in a actual medical practice, you might, as a new patient, go in, give your details, they set you up on the system, and then they can make appointments for you, give you prescriptions and all the rest. So if you just think of it like that, it does make sense. What it means for us in practice is we will have to create our patients first, and then we can create prescriptions for them and appointments and so on. The other 2 options then, cascade update and cascade delete, just mean if I delete a patient, should I delete all their prescriptions as well, or delete all their appointments as well, and so on. So if you tick this, if you make any changes to patient, it will update that patient number all the way through the database. And the same with delete. If I delete the patient, it'll delete all their prescriptions and appointments and so on. So usually the safest bet is to just tick all 3 of these boxes, and it will enforce all those rules, and that means it'll keep your data consistent across all the different tables. Okay, there's a couple of common errors that you might see. I'm just going to actually skip past these because I'll show them to you as we're kind of having a look through the database. So what we're going to do today is create the prescription table. Actually, sorry, we already did this at the exercise at the end of last week. So the starter file that you're going to download now in a second will have all the tables created. We're just going to create the relationships and add some more data into each table. Okay, so where you're going to go to get the file, it's just underneath the video here. It's called Relationships Start File. So save that, and then you can open it and double click to open, same as with your Excel files. Okay, and you'll see a couple of warning messages here: enable content, and also that it's a read-only copy. So before you start, click enable content first, and also click on save as. Okay, and then you'll get the option to save it. So save it into, last week some people had issues saving into the MyWit OneDrive folder. So either you can save it into your G drive, or if OneDrive comes up here, you can save it into that version of OneDrive. Okay. Okay. Enable content came back. So if that comes up, just click that again. So what you should see in here is our 5 tables have been created. Patient has a few different patients in there. So there's 6 patients there. All the other tables don't have anything in them just yet. Okay, so we're going to create our relationships first, and then we'll add some more information into them after. Okay. So, right, so to create relationships between your tables, go to the Database Tools section on the menu. Okay, and then in here, you'll see a button called Relationships. So click on that, and it adds all of the tables in. Sometimes, just to show you, if you add a new table, it might not show up here straight away. So there's also this add tables option on the menu. If you click that, you'll see a list of all your tables, and you can click on the table you want to add and click add to add it. Okay, I'm going to close that for now. But later on for the assignment, you're going to need to add a new table. So it's good to know how to do that. Okay, so here we can see all our different tables. The first one we're going to create the relationship between is between patient ID and prescription number. Okay, so to create the link between the two, you're going to click on patient ID in the patient field. That's the one with the little key next to it. Okay, and then drag that and drop it over here, and drop it onto the patient ID field in the prescription table. Okay, and once you do that, you will see this box appear, and you should see here it's saying patient and then prescription. That's our 2 tables, and we should be seeing patient ID in both of those fields. If you're not, then maybe you didn't drag and drop directly onto the patient ID field. But here you can actually pick a different field anyway. So say if you clicked on prescription date or something by accident, you can change it here to patient ID. Basically here what we're doing is trying to match up these 2 patient IDs. Like I said, then we're going to tick all these boxes to enforce those rules, and then one-to-many is the relationship type, and that's fine. And lastly, click create. Okay, and once you've done that, you should see this line appear between the two. If you don't see these symbols on it, these symbols represent the one-to-many relationship. If you don't see those, it's probably because you didn't tick those 3 options. So if that's the case, you can edit a relationship at any stage by right-clicking on it, going to edit relationship, and then you'll get the same box back again. You can just tick those 3 options again. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and do this for the other tables as well to match up all our different pieces of information. With patient ID, patient and patient card, we're matching these up again on the patient ID. So this time I'm going to drag patient ID from the patient table over to patient ID on the patient card table. Okay, and again, tick the 3 boxes. In this case, you'll see the type of relationship is one-to-one, which is correct, and then click on create. Now, I actually opened patient card table there a second ago, just specifically to get this error to come up, because this is one of the common ones that you might see. So if you see this error, which says the database engine could not lock table patient card because it's already in use, that basically just means that you can't create the relationship until you close down your patient table. So if you see that, just click OK. You can click cancel to get out of that and go and close down whatever table you're trying to create the relationship for. And once your table is closed and you go back and try it again, it should work fine. Okay. So again, we're matching up the 2 patient IDs, tick all the boxes and click create. Okay, and you'll see the line connecting those 2, and it says 1 on both sides. So that's representing our one-to-one relationship there. The last ones then, we're once again matching up patient ID here in the patient table with patient ID in the appointment table. So drag and drop from patient ID in patient to appointment. Again, tick all the boxes and click create. Okay, and that's that one done. And lastly then, doctor and appointment need to be linked up as well. So click on the key field in the doctor table, doctor ID, drag that over onto doctor ID in the appointment table. Again, just check that it's matching up the 2 doctor IDs. Click all the boxes and click create. Okay, so when you're finished, your layout and your relationships should look like this. By the way, you can see if you want to move things around, you can click on the table names there and you can drag and move them around so it looks something like that. Okay, so that's all our relationships created. Now what we should see is as we start to enter more information, it'll force us to keep the data consistent, which is what we want. Okay, so once you're done with this, you can close down the relationships table and you can say yes to save the layout. I'm just going to go and have a little look first before we start in the patient table. So in here, you'll see, like I said, there's 6 patients already created and their patient IDs are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So when we go and start trying to create, let's say, prescriptions for these patients, what we're going to see here is that it's going to make sure that we only use patient IDs that are already in the patient table. So another common error that you might see is if you try to create a prescription for patient 7, who, as you saw there, isn't in the patient table yet, it'll probably let you actually go the whole way through it until the end of the row. So I'm just gonna type in some random stuff here. Okay, comments. One daily. Okay, and when you get to the end of the row, you will see this message. You cannot add or change a record because a related record is required in table patient. So that's basically saying if you want to create a prescription for patient 7, you have to first go off, create that patient, and then come back and create their prescription. Or maybe you want to create a prescription for someone who's already in there instead. So if I use any of the numbers from 1 to 6, it'll work fine. So I'm just going to say patient number 2, for example. Okay. So for that, again, if I just go to the end of the row, that one has worked okay. Okay, same idea here. If I try to create one for patient number 3, that should be fine because that patient already exists in the patient table. Okay, so that's that error. There was one other common error. Yes, okay. This last error you might see in some cases. This can happen. Sorry, to make that a bit bigger there. This error can come up if you already have data in 2 tables and then you try to create the relationship between them, and there's data that doesn't match. So say again you have patients 1 through 6 in your patient table, but you have prescriptions for patient 7, 8, and 9 in the prescription table, and then you try to create a relationship. It won't basically allow you to create that relationship because there's mismatched information there. We hopefully won't see that error at all because of the way we've done it. So we've created all our relationships at the start. So that should mean that we don't see that error, hopefully. Okay, so I think that's covered everything. I'm going to just show you now the exercise. So the exercise instructions are also underneath the video, and it's essentially just to create the relationships so that they look like this. So we've done that, and now also add 3 to 5 records to each table in the database. So I've started adding a couple for prescription there. You could just add 1 or 2 more for prescription, and then go ahead and add some information to the other tables as well. You'll need to do it in a certain order. So you'll need to, obviously we have some patients already, so that one's fine. Create prescriptions next, then you could do patient card. You'll need to do doctor before appointment as well, because again, appointment asks us to put in doctor ID, so we won't be able to make any appointments until we have some doctors first. So yeah, so that's the last one. Once you do it in that order, it should be okay. If you do run into any issues, just let me know and I'll come and have a look.